Welcome to the Mentor Podcast, where the most highly motivated entrepreneurs come to get their weekly dose of financial stability with host Ron LeGrand, as well as other nationally recognized thought leaders who will teach you how to get, grow, and protect your wealth.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Ron LeGrand with another episode of the Mentor Podcast and another in our series of Q&A, which means you submit questions and I answer them.
All right. Question from Young from New York. Will our tenant buyer find out about the price we paid for the house we just bought using seller financing before signing the lease option agreement?
No.
Is that public information?
No, that's none of the buyer's business.
But they could find out if they looked it up, could they?
No. Are we lease optioning the house from the seller, or are we buying it?
We bought it on owner financing.
Okay, they could find that out. I've never known one that did, but it doesn't matter. What do I care if they find out? Honestly, I can't imagine putting a tenant buyer in a house that doesn't think I'm in this for a profit. Okay. And if they say, well, you paid less, I say, yeah, so. Yep. Remember, tenant buyers are stick to you like glue. They can't qualify at the bank. Therefore, you're their window into a home of their own. They don't argue with you about crap like that. And I don't negotiate with them. I don't even talk, price much. It'd be hard for them to get me to lower the price because they need me a lot worse than I need them. Now, of course, the more money they got to put down, the more lenient I am, just so we're clear.
Yeah. All right. Young's second question is, I live in New York and just formed an LLC online and got an EIN number. Where does the tenants by the entirety ownership rule come into play, since New York State never asked me for my wife's info?
I don't know whether New York is even a tenants by the entirety state. Okay. Let's say it is. Then when you are forming your LLC, you just put it in your operating agreement that you and your wife own this LLC 100% tenants by the entirety.
Okay, good. That was the second part of his question. Do I just include my wife's name on the operating agreement and tell the bank the LLC is owned by both of us?
The bank's not going to ask you who owns the LLC. The bank, which bank? The bank has nothing to do with this deal if your LLC is the trustee.
John just looked it up and he says he doesn't think New York is a tenants by the entirety state.
Okay, then you're going to have to find out what the next best thing is where you can own this thing jointly, undivided interest. Again, you better get my Structuring Your Empire course while it's a third of the normal price today. I'm going to get in trouble for that one, aren't I?
You make the rules, Ron. So.
I don't care. I can't be fired.
All right. Third question is, if I own my Flipper LLC using tenants by the entirety, which I guess he can't in New York, but can I still pay my wife's salary and treat her as an employee within my company and deduct her salary as expenses?
Sure. But remember, your CPA might suggest you do that. But you and your wife's income is the same, whether the LLC pays her or not. You're still going to pay taxes on this on it. So, in my opinion, all you're doing is now paying payroll taxes for your wife by putting her on as salary from an LLC. Because if you pay her a salary, you got to pay the matching FICA and FUTA and payroll taxes. Okay, why not just give her a draw? Okay, so I don't get to deduct the draw. So what? I can write it off by paying her a salary, but now we got to add it to her income. So it comes right back at me. I don't see what you accomplish by doing that. Now, if it's a C corporation, I do, because a C corporation has nothing to do with your personal income tax returns.
Okay. His fourth question is, if I own my LLC, flipper or keeper, using tenants by the entirety rule, do I get two K1s at the end of the year? One for myself and one for my wife?
No. You get one with both of your names on it because you both own it 100% undivided.
All right. What happens if 3 months go by and we cannot sell the house we just bought using seller financing or subject to? What is plan B?
Plan B is get more advertising out to attract buyers. Probably come get educated, and maybe relax your standard a little bit if you have to. Maybe you think you want $25,000 down. Well, I'd rather take $10,000 down than let the house sit there vacant for very long. But caveat, I'm not taking the first 10 that comes along. Okay, I want to play the market a while first and see how much I can get. remember, you can always rent the house for crying out loud if you want to. But I'll tell you, I'd have to look hard on doing that.
It's possible they may have paid too much too. They might have to go back to the seller. Is that?
Well, it depends. It's all case by case. Yeah, it's possible. That's a good point. I would want to ask the people that I'm sending to the house why they haven't bought it. That's always a good point. You might spot the problem right there and you might be able to fix it. So if in fact you paid too much and your tenants don't want it because you're asking too much, then you can go back to the seller and readjust it. Remember, when you are buying without personal liability, the seller only has two choices: either fix what was broke or take the house back. So that's what, that'll make you sleep better at night when you know nobody's going to come sue you personally for a debt that you didn't incur personally. That's why I don't want anybody personally guaranteeing debt.
Okay. All right. And next question is, if we formed two LLCs, one for flippers and one for keepers, as you suggest, and if we only focus on pretty house deals and not doing any wholesaling, rehabbing, or acts, then the flipper LLC is always going to show a loss on paper, since we put most of the business expenses such as PATLI, VA, car payments, training, etc., through the flippers LLC without any revenue.
Yeah, that probably won't make much money, but the truth is it don't matter if both of these are LLCs, is whatever the losses and profits are going to go to your personal income tax return anyway.
Okay.
So it's not going to change your taxes.
All right. Next question is from David in New York. When purchasing on terms, do you get an inspection as part of the contract? And does your tenant buyer get their own inspection?
I don't get an inspection on a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood. And frankly, I don't know. I've never had a tenant buyer do it, but if they did, I don't care. I'm not fixing anything. So it's up to them. Frankly, the subject just don't even come up. But if they want to, nothing's stopping them.
Okay. Next question is from Kamal in Florida. I recognize you are a great one. Does the seller know? Does the seller know before the closing that the loan won't be paid off at closing?
Oh, absolutely. Or there won't be any closing. I mean, golly, they're told that before they even make an appointment to come to their house, or there's no reason to go to their house. It's all in the term script. Just read the term script to them, and it clearly tells them. In fact, the yes question that the VAs get, would you consider taking a monthly payment until we can pay you in full? It answers that question.
Right. So you're not surprising them at closing with this.
Oh gosh, no. No. Mm-mm.
All right. Next question is from Roger in Illinois. Who carries the insurance and how is it structured if sellers have mortgage on the property, whether doing a lease or owner financing?
Okay. The minute you take title to the property, you should have your own insurance policy, a non-owner occupied policy. The seller should cancel theirs as soon as your insurance company has notified the bank of the new policy. Seller cancels the old one, and sometimes your insurance company can get them to cancel the old one, making sure that, of course, that the mortgagee, the bank, is named on your policy as well. If you're lease optioning it, there's no insurance to get. Only the seller can insure the property, not you. And when you're lease optioning it, you might suggest to the seller that they change their policy to a non-owner occupied policy, and their rate will drop considerably. But honestly, I mean, that's entirely up to them. It's their job to insure the property if you're just leasing it with an option to buy.
All right. And then he says, here in the state of Illinois, I believe you have to be a licensed realtor to do a lease option. How do you get around that?
You get around that by quit listening to people who don't know what they're talking about. That is not true. In the state of Illinois, though, this first of this year, they did pass a law that says you cannot assign contracts unless you have a license. A couple of years you can do. Other than that, you're going to need a license to assign contracts. So that's going to affect the wholesalers because that's mainly what they do. It does not affect your lease optioning. You're not assigning any contracts when you're doing lease options.
All right. Josh from Georgia. In the following scenario, purchase a home in a land trust where the operating LLC is a trustee and real estate holding LLC is a beneficiary.
Mm-hmm.
They place a lease option tenant buyer into the home where the operating LLC collects the non-refundable deposit and the monthly payments from the tenant buyer and also handles paying the mortgage. Do you or could you consider the operating LLC to be acting as a property manager where it can take a percentage of the deposit and monthly payments as income?
You can do that any way you want it. But remember, if you're going to put a tenant buyer in the house, it should be in LLC C, meaning your investment portfolio, not your operating portfolio. Your operating portfolio is taxed differently. It doesn't get the long-term capital gains and all the goodies that C does. I mean, you can try to claim them until the IRS tags you and calls you a dealer, and they all go away. So I want all rental properties in C. Now, B, your operating entity, can be the trustee of a property that C owns as beneficial interest, if that makes any sense. But all the money should go into C. C should collect the money and pay the mortgage payment, not in B. Now, when you do want to put one in C, if B is broke and needs money, the simplest thing to do is just have C take the money and loan it to B when it's needed.
Okay.
Sure, everybody understood the answer to that.
Might need to take advantage of that $497 course today, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Rick from Nebraska. We own 2 houses side by side for over 20 years. We live in one and son and wife live in the other. I want to put them in land trusts. I want to make sure I fill out the form correctly. I've got the grantor is my wife and I. For consideration of blank dollars, what is needed here?
10.
Okay.
Whatever. Doesn't matter.
All right. Trustee is an individual of a different last name.
Okay.
On the back, who can sign as a witness?
Anybody standing around. In fact, there'd probably be one there with the notary, wherever you're going to get notarized, but it has to be notarized to record the deed.
All right. So he says the notary takes care of the back page, correct?
Yeah, but not the witness.
Okay. I'm going to have my LLC as beneficiary.
Is this their residence they're talking about?
Yeah, it's 2 residents side by side. Him and his wife live in one, and the son and his wife live in the other.
Now, the one you and your wife live in you and her need to be the beneficiary. The rental property in LLC can be. Remember, that's that C I just discussed.
Okay.
You don't want an LLC involved in your home unless it's the trustee.
Okay. All right. We've made it halfway through.
You've made it more than halfway through.
Well, I mean, we've made it halfway through the question, so a little more than halfway through, yeah.
Well, actually, it's 11:15 already.
I do.
Let me do a quick commercial here. All right. Well, listen, guys, if you are tuning in today and you like what you see and you like this business and you want to really learn this business instead of trying to get it in little clips like this, which is probably going to get you more trouble than good, you have an opportunity to call my office today, and they're waiting for your call. And the call is all about what we can do for you, because we have a really special deal on mentoring combined with my 4-day quick start school, whether it be virtual or live. In fact, it's both. I mean, we got discounts up to $4,000 off plus Gold Club points. We got a really, really good deal for you right now. We call it the COVID deal. Probably a bad name for it, but and then there's mentoring. Mentoring is something you really strongly should consider if you're really serious, because it's literally where a private mentor takes you by the hand with one-on-one mentoring. This is not that group stuff where you get on group calls. Literally 30 minutes every week, you have a private call. They go through your deals. They get on the phone with your sellers. They call the sellers for you. They're waiting for you while you're in the house after you've made the appointment. And they'll help you get some deals going during the 6 months that you're with them. And frankly, they're probably the difference between success and failure. And, we all need mentors, no matter what we do. And so we got some good ones that I hand chose. They're all doing what they help you do. They're all running their own business, and they all got a servant's heart. But you have an opportunity right now to save a lot of money that you're not going to be able to save if you wait till later to take action. Plus, we can finance it for you in multiple different ways in-house. So if you're interested, at least get all of the facts, and then you can make a decision.
All right. One other thing I want to mention, Ron, we do have a lot of people submitting questions right now live. Guys, we took all these questions ahead of time. The deadline to submit questions was yesterday at noon.
Okay.
If we are able to get through these, I think we might be able to get Ron to answer a few of those, but
okay.
Hard pressed to get these answers.
Well, let's get going.
Okay. So Carla from Colorado says, you talked about going to meet with the sellers. Can you do this from anywhere in the U.S.? I travel all the time and I'm never in one area long enough.
Yeah, make sure you're on my 5-hour training on the 11th. And by the way, people are going to submit deals. We're going to have mentors call deals. We're going to have the last hour is going to be deal structuring on that as well. Answer is yes, as long as they're sending you videos. Might be a good idea. You still have someone that can go take a look at the house. But honestly, Carla, when you think about it, if you're not putting up any money, what do you got to lose? That's hard to get from here to here. Okay, if you don't have anything at risk, it's hard to lose.
Yeah. This is probably covered on the 5-hour event next week too. How does this work in these times with people out of work or losing their homes? Is there a market coming up?
That's a good question, actually. The answer is it works well. In fact, think about it. People are at home. They answer the phone more. And some of them are out of work. Some of them have problems. Some of them need to sell their house or want to it because of fear instilled by the media into the marketplace. Look, it's just simple, guys. Believe it or not, the worse times get, the easier this business gets because people are more apt to sell and other people need to lease option more because they've given up their home or for whatever reason. And believe me, this COVID's got little to do with buying and selling houses today. The only difference is whether we go to the house or not. And I leave that up to the seller.
Okay.
Assuming I'm in the same city.
Jermaine from Indiana. Do we need to find my own lawyer at the beginning, or do you help with that?
No, I don't help with that. And you don't need a lawyer till you got a deal. So go get a contract to purchase a house, and then you can easily find a real estate closing attorney.
Okay. Allie from Tennessee says, I have a home under contract in Tennessee and closing in 2 weeks. I've worked out 100% seller financing for the full term of his loan.
Good.
Seller just bought it in November of 19, but now has to move because of family issues. House needs no repairs. I am purchasing for his exact loan amount, which is roughly $118,000. The monthly payment is roughly $660 PITI. My exit strategy is to do a lease with option to buy and get as much as I can for down payment, and I think I can get $1,000 monthly.
Oh, I know you can.
This is a VA loan, and the seller got a $6,000 grant for down payment assistance when he bought. If he sells the house within 10 years, he'll have to pay it back. I plan on keeping this house long-term and offer long-term to my end buyer. What instrument should I use to close this? Agreement for deed. I want to be able to keep the seller financing in place.
Well, the only way to ensure that the VA doesn't want their $6,000 back is to do a lease with an option to buy. Because if the VA finds out that he sold the property, no matter how he sold it, they might want their $6,000. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to ask for it immediately. I'm sure that they'll work out a deal with him to pay it over a lot of years. But it does mean that you're probably going to wind up having to pay him for the $6,000. So I'd want to know more about what's the catch on the $6,000 if he sells the house and what they expect first. But lease option would kill the whole thing. I mean, they can't call it due if he didn't sell it.
Okay. And of course, that $6,000 would be just coming off the purchase price anyway, right?
Yeah, it's not your $6,000. It's his $6,000 to pay. You know, this is one where I might actually put it into a land trust and have the sellers be the beneficial interest, just so I can hold on to that in case the VA did say something. Seller notifies you, you can show the VA that he just put it into a land trust. Of course, he's got to assign his beneficial interest to you, which you just hold on to, which means you still own the land trust.
Okay. Let's see. She continues, I'm just not sure exactly what to use without transferring title out of his name and triggering due on sale clause. So like you said, you can do a lease option
we just answered that.
My closing agent said do a land contract and don't record it.
Well, your closing agent is giving you crappy advice. First of all, when you do a land contract, you have to record it by law. I've never seen a state where that is not the case. I am surprised your closing agent gave you that advice because they're in trouble. They're a problem with that. But, you know, that would do the same thing, I guess. But I promise you the state's going to require that thing be recorded. But, you know, that's where you need to bring an attorney in. Let them figure out how to do it.
All right. And lastly, when and if the time comes that my tenant buyer is ready to buy it from me, Is that when I would record it? I guess you record it right away.
Yeah, you do all of that in simultaneous closing. Because now this loan is paid off. It's irrelevant what they want.
Okay.
That's closing agent's job.
All right. And lastly, would I need to get additional insurance on the house?
If you take title to it, yes, you need to get a non-owner occupant policy. If you lease option it, no.
All right. Evgeny from California. This is kind of a long one, it looks like. So imagine you're in sunny and well-taxed California. The local specifics in your county are median price house is $1 million. Many houses doubled in price since 2009 lows. So the long-term owners have some $500,000 in equity and won't be excited to sell for what they owe. The newer owners still have 200 plus in equity, and their PITI is close to 6,000, while the rents for that type of property are under 5,000. How would you approach the pretty house business under these conditions?
I would approach it the same way I do anywhere else, except I would expect bigger paydays. First of all, you don't have to buy it for what they owe. I mean, frankly, that's more rare than common. You just buy with a wraparound mortgage, just hopefully less than what it's worth, but at some point well above what they owe. And you figure out what the term is going to be. That's the way most of the houses I buy are. I owe them more than they owe the bank. So that moots that point. As far as the rents go, I mean, prices go up, the rents go up. As long as there's a big spread in there, that's all I care about. So beyond that, I'm not sure what the real question was. Bigger numbers mean bigger paychecks. More dolly waller in, the more stick to you.
Yeah, I think so. That was the second part. He said his the PITI is close to 6,000, while the rents were only around 5,000.
Well, if the PITI is 6,000, the tenant buyer is going to pay at least enough to cover the 6,000. But on the other hand, let's say I'm selling $1.5 million house. I mean, come on, I ain't going to give anybody the keys if they don't have at least $150,000 to give me. And that's if they can't qualify. If they can qualify, they need more than that. If they can't qualify, let's say I collect $150. If I have to make $1,000 a month negative cash flow, I'm only going to give them about 12 months to go get me cashed out anyway. So let's see. Could I take $150,000 and pay back 12,000 of it? See if that works in your spreadsheet. Tell John to do it. He ain't doing anything over it.
All right. George from Illinois. Can you tell me what a SMLLC is other than a single member LLC, and the difference between a regular LLC and why to choose one over the other?
Because a single member LLC is easy to attack. If they get a judgment against you personally, they'll take that LLC and they'll take a bank account first because you're the only owner of it. However, if you have more than one owner of it, they have properly held so that it's undivided interest, then they're not going to get it.
Okay. Next question from him is, how do you implement work for equity as far as the terms of implementation and credit for the work and inspection of the work?
Well, I don't give them credit for the work. I give them a price that's below retail. They got to go do the work and go get a loan. So there's no credit for me to give them. Now, sometimes, though, I put a work for equity tenant buyer in a house, and let's say it needs a central heat and air conditioning system that costs $3,000, and they just can't come up with $3,000. Then I might put that in there up front, and I charge them 125% of what I paid for onto the price of the house. Sometimes we do that, but I'm not really giving them any credit for the work. It's their job to go get the house fixed and get it refinanced.
Okay. His next question on tax liens. Even though the annual interest rate may be high, I have a feeling most are redeemed within a couple months, thus reducing your returns and seeking more defaulted tax liens quickly. Is this true?
No, your feeling is wrong. Some of them are redeemed quickly, and some of them are never redeemed. And the ones that are never redeemed are the ones that go to a tax deed sale, if that's what their state does. So, making assumptions. If people are going to redeem their tax liens quickly, then why they let them go on the market to begin with? So quit assuming. In fact, Ted Thomas, we just did a 3-day event for Ted Thomas. He's the best there is at tax liens and tax deed sales. Get a hold of our office because we've got several things of his that we can offer you. But you need to learn a little more about that business and quit assuming.
All right. We got Jean from Quebec, or I guess that would be Jean, maybe. It is realistic. Is it realistic for me to be able to invest in the real estate business in the U.S. virtually?
A whole lot of Canadians are.
Is it possible, or do I need a business partner in the U.S.?
No. You can own an entity in the U.S. if you are in Canada, or you can own an entity in Canada and still buy houses in the U.S. You check with your attorney on that one.
Okay. And probably want to get on our COVID training next week to learn how to do all this virtually.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Of course, everything we're talking about here works in Canada too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We even have a Canadian agreement for sale right on the Go Club website.
Yeah. Sharon from Arkansas. What is the absolute fastest way your students have found to generate motivated, pretty house leads that lead to the first deal in a new town where they know no one?
Well, fastest way, of course, is subscribe to our Gold Club, and you get them every day in your inbox. But there's a whole bunch of other ways. In fact, I'm going to go over some of those on the 11th that you can get leads. Key is quality leads. The more quality they are, the easier they are to do deals with. So quality means people who call you for the most part, and or people who have some kind of an issue. So we can do a lot of things to get to those folks. But for right now, we start with the leads we get every day on the Gold Club for a lousy $59 a month to get all those Gold Club benefits and those leads. Incredible bargain, guys. So if you're not on the Gold Club, get on it. Go ronsgoldclub.com. You'll see why it's a big bargain.
Yep. All right. Second question from Sharon is, I need an elevator speech when asked, what do you do? That will cause people to climb through broken glass to do business with me.
I buy and sell houses and close quickly and usually pay all the closing costs. Do you have one for sale?
That'll work.
That's all for this edition of the Mentor Podcast. To connect with Ron and learn how you can attain financial freedom, as well as up-to-date strategies to grow and protect your wealth based on today's discussion, go to www.connectwiththementor.com.